Here's your smart fact of the day. Do you know statistics indicate that almost 85% of India incorporated companies were family businesses? So, family businesses are the core of the Indian economy. In fact, if I look at America, family firms comprise 90% of all business enterprises in North America. So clearly, it is a form of organization that we don't really speak about, especially if you're working in the corporate world, but there seems to be something there. And it's a touchy topic. So in this episode of Smarter With Sid, what I'm going to figure out is what's the deal about family businesses and should you be getting into one? What are the pitfalls and what are the positives? Let's go. So I used to always, read about family businesses becoming successful. I guess Infosys started off as a family business, and so many of these old firms like the Tatas and the Birlas and the Adanis and the Ambanis and their fabulous wealth is all a result of a family getting together and making business endeavors. No, I'm not getting into the politics of it, nor am I trying to say, the way in which their business practices are good or bad. No, that's not the reason why this specific episode exists. I wanted to do a bit of an exploration on the nature of family businesses and go beyond the exceptions to the rule. So the Tatas, Birlas, Ambanis, anybody else's in the world, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds or whatever you want to call them, right? They are the exceptions. But the moment I came across the statistic that, such a large percentage of Indians and maybe even North Americans and maybe even the rest of the world are family owned businesses, it just made me realize that the context over here is very different. In fact, that seems to be the norm rather than the exception. Family owned businesses can be small, they can be projects, they can be large, they can be, under the radar, they can be in the media and across sectors. And that is the context. So I just wanted to figure out, if I wanted to start a family oriented business, what should I be doing? Should I be consulting somebody? What are the pitfalls? What are the sort of expectations that I need to have? What are the dimensions that I need to explore? And so on and so forth. So that's your context. Now, on Smarter with Sid, what we try to figure out is the context first. So this is the context. But now let's go down to a few, let's say, realizations based upon my observations and experiences, right? And I'll come to the realizations later, but I'll give you my observations and experiences first. Now, as a kid, I've always seen my mom and dad collaborate and work together. So they ran this small hospital. And I've seen them work together. So it was more like the norm for me to see family work together in a specific endeavor. Now, I've also done individual projects with family members, and I'm very excited. They're all in the works. I have tried doing work before with family members as well, but this one is special because this is my immediate family. And I'll let you know when we're going to do something soon. But the fact is, that we've been starting to work on projects as a family, and it has been a particularly interesting experience. And the interesting experience is because if I have a look around and if I look at traditional businesses like, what we call the Marwadi convenience stores or, anything that has been in business, it has involved brothers, sisters, partners, wives, parents, whatever it may be. I have noticed that there is a certain dynamic in a family business that is unique to it. And having now experienced being part of projects that can turn into full-fledged businesses, what I've realized is that it's better if you have in mind to start something with somebody in your family that you might want to listen to this, right? So here goes. As somebody who has kind of seen his parents work, I've seen them fight, but I've seen them succeed. I've seen them be quite genuine about their interactions. And it's been quite an observation. I've seen my kids do really successful things on their social media businesses. And I'm, quite amazed to see how they navigate their personal lives and their, professional lives and manage the whole thing at such a young age. And having done projects myself with family members, I do realize that what we need to figure out if we are planning to start a family business or maybe with a family member or whatever you want to call it, is to actually understand, how do I add a new layer of meaning to my relationship with my family member because of this project? Because I think that that is a sensible way of going about things. I've seen too many people get into family oriented businesses and then falling out or just ruining their personal friendships or personal relationships because the business isn't doing well. In fact, Varun and Ghazal Alag, who so successfully set up Mama Earth, were asked, hey, so what if you divorce each other? Where's the family business going to go? By some of their investors. And they had to go to great lengths to actually explain that, their would be unicorn, which it is now, is not going to suffer because of any personal fallouts. So personal fallouts and the questions around those are real, and they need to be navigated really well. But I think the best bit about it is, if we kind of understand and set expectations really clearly about, how important is this project to us? Okay, is it equally important, or is it like number 4 in my priority but number 1? Well, then it's a problem there, and so on and so forth. In fact, if you're setting up any partnership with a stranger, the same rules apply, to be honest. But or a friend, even the same rules apply. But with family, there's a specific dynamic. You're living with those people a lot of times, or you're interacting with those people a lot of times, and it is going to have a negative impact if your business isn't doing well, or if you don't think the other person is pulling their weight. With partners or with friends, you can have an emotional distance. But over here, a lot of times I have seen, especially younger folk, just get into fist fights at times. Not my daughters, mind you, but I have seen people get into fist fights or major arguments or the rest of it, and getting pissed off with each other is seems to be part of the whole package. I think if you want to avoid that, I don't think there is an entire 100% avoidance of something like this. But if you want to avoid that, setting expectations, understanding them is absolutely critical. Right? So if you're interested in setting up a business, please keep this in mind. Second thing is, it's a successful model, right? But don't look at the exceptions, right? Don't think in terms of, we are going to make it big and it's going to be so huge and stuff like that. I don't think that you should, that's the reason why you should do it. Remember the point that I made about adding a new layer of meaning to your already existing relationship? Well, take that seriously. If you're happy and don't want to change the existing relationship, you don't want it to move in any direction, don't start a family business. Okay, don't ruin what is already good. And that is pretty valid advice for people who like to compartmentalize. Family is family, business is business, and there's nothing wrong with that. At least know your own mind and know your partner's mind or know your family member's mind. But if you're doing it, certainly make sure that you don't look at the exceptions and make sure that your priorities are set. Now, this does make it a touchy subject, but I think that there is a different level of trust that is required. Now, I'm going to explain both the negative and the positive sides of this trust aspect. Well, a family member, typically they've got your back. Okay, so the trust in the person is much more than the trust that you would have in, say, a stranger or even a friend, right? The fact is that trust is all about the person, and that they're not going to mostly backstab you. Of course, there are exceptions that you see in Hindi movies, but generally people don't try to backstab each other. People try to get along. People are love each other, and sometimes like each other a lot. So it does work in that favor, and so therefore trust builds speed, and so you could really, really succeed. And there's also a matching of wavelength that happens within a family that is very difficult to replicate outside. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a different sort of wavelength. The fact is that trust has two sides. This is the positive side that I just spoke about, but the negative side is when the person, you've been seeing each other since a non-age and you've grown up together. Of course, the other person's weaknesses and sore spots and the rest of it. And that this person does not do this well, or this person is horrible at this. And when this person is kind of being lazy and the rest of it. And it becomes extremely obvious. And so therefore, quite a big level of fighting can happen. So trust not just the person, but look at your family member in a different way and appreciate the strengths and skills that they bring to the table. That is big, and that will make the world of difference in this relationship that you're trying to improve. Remember, mind you, if you're starting a family business, one of the goals has to be to add a new layer of relationship to the meaning. But trust me, ever since I've started working on family projects of my own, I have added those dimensions. Sometimes family life gets unidimensional because you are compartmentalizing, and that is okay. But the magic that happens when you're successfully doing work with a family member, the joy is absolutely unmatchable. Absolutely. And that's my learning. Of course, it's this kind of learning is not there on the nextlevellearning.com, which is what this plug is about. That is about branding and content and all the skills that you need to learn to do well in your job, whether it's a family business or the corporate world or your own gig. I hope you liked this episode of mine on Smarter with Sid. Many more to come from where this came from. Do like and subscribe to this podcast, and do follow me on LinkedIn and on Instagram. I'm the Traveling Professor. And finally, if you like podcasts like this, just check out IVM, man. They've got wonderful stuff waiting for you.